Oh, so our company has certain perks. If you hit the 5-year mark, you get a little pin that you put on your lanyard. At the 10-year mark, I think it's a more beautiful pin.
Hello, listeners of B-Side. It is Hwejin back at it again here with Ryan Park today. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Hwejin. Hello, listeners.
Ryan, we gotta ask, what is your hot take?
My hot take is that Maryland drivers do it better.
Wow. Bold claim. Why do you say that?
So if everyone could just, put down their torches and pitchforks for just a minute, I would say that having lived in both states, I've had plenty of time to observe drivers from both states. And I understand that here in Virginia, Maryland drivers have a very bad reputation. All that being said, Maryland drivers generally drive like they have somewhere to be. They're attentive, they're ambitious, and they drive with conviction. And so these are all very diplomatic ways to describe Maryland drivers. And then I'll leave it to every Virginia resident here to pick a lot more worse words and worse phrases to use about Maryland drivers.
Oh, so what words would you use to describe Virginia drivers?
Virginia drivers, well, I can't use single words.
Right.
Well, okay. So Virginia drivers drive like they are lost, despite being in their own state. Virginia drivers drive consistently below the speed limit. Safe, to be sure, if I'm going to affirm anything in them. However, perhaps safe to a fault, as if they have nowhere to be, as if they're not already running late.
Oh, that's so interesting. Because I recently moved to Maryland, and for me, it's like the opposite, where every time I encounter a Maryland driver, I'm like, oh my goodness, like they are driving so dangerously. But oh, that's so interesting. I definitely am someone who disagrees with your hot take, but
that's why
it's
hot.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a hot take, yeah.
Yeah, no. Because on the Beltway and stuff, or on just highways in general, there are people tailgating me. And I look in my rearview mirror, they're like so close. I look at my speed, I'm still going like 20 over. And they're still like zooming by me. And I'm like, dang.
Yeah. I think one more thing to know about Maryland drivers is that there are many different kinds of Maryland drivers. Virginia drivers are most familiar with the Beltway Marylanders, who are probably...
That's true.
From the perspective of someone who's from Maryland, Beltway Marylanders are probably the worst drivers that we have. Drivers who are more towards Baltimore, drivers who are more towards Frederick, they're fast and ambitious, but they aren't quite as mean.
Oh.
So they're prudent, they're on point, they're attentive. And, that's these cherished drivers are the ones who I'm thinking of when I think of the Maryland driver. I also hate Beltway Marylanders as well, 495 Marylanders.
Okay. Yeah, I'll keep more of an eye out when I'm on when I'm in my neighborhood and stuff like that. But yeah, man, as of right now, I'm like, I don't know, dude. But like you said, that's why it's a hot take. We'll see what our listeners think as well. And maybe someone will approach you in person at church.
Yeah. Or maybe I'll see them on the highway.
True. Ryan, do you consider yourself a foodie?
Foodie is a term that was in my mind, sort of used as a pejorative. You would call somebody a foodie if you want to get under the skin. And so I was very reluctant to consider myself a foodie. And so that reluctance continues on to this day. So to make a long answer short, I guess so. I guess I am a foodie.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time developing my palate and, getting to understand what I like and what I don't like without the kind of smug detachment of, the man I was in college, where as long as it wasn't toxic or anything close to lethal, I would, be able to consume and live for the next day.
Gotcha. I asked that because I was going to ask, if you had to eat the same meal at least once a day?
Yeah.
Like whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner,
Mhm.
what would it be?
The same meal every day. Okay. My answer for that would be 회덮밥.
Oh.
Nutritious, delicious raw fish, balanced. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Second answer might have been 돼지 국밥,
Uh-huh.
which is a kind of a Busan area specialty. However, if I were to eat that every day, there might be some, very bad repercussions to that long term.
Right.
And by long term,
right.
I mean for any amount of period of time longer than a week or two.
True. For those of you guys who don't know, like 회덮밥 is, would you say Korean version of poke bowl, kind of?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it.
And then 돼지국밥 is like just a rich, like thicker soup, like broth with like pork in it. You normally put salt and pepper according to your taste and stuff like that, and eat it with rice and stuff.
Yeah, it's a very hearty broth. Contains pork and perhaps other parts of the animal. Rice, of course. Sometimes noodles, sometimes vegetables, sometimes these various different kinds of pastes and scallions and other things that just make it all in all a good choice for a meal at any time of the day.
Yeah, yeah. Alrighty. So, I heard that you aren't from Nova. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So where in Maryland did you grow up?
I grew up in Ellicott City, Maryland.
Okay. How was that for you?
Ellicott City is a very comfortable suburb. And so I went to school in very comfortable conditions. Looking back on my life, I could say that it was a very privileged life. I had in my opinion, the quality of the education was very good.
Yeah.
Dedicated teachers, students that aspired to really achieve and do the best with what they had. And people got along. They had fun. They tried hard in school, and basically everybody stayed out of trouble.
Yeah. What is like your favorite or like most vivid, I guess, childhood memory? Like if I ask like childhood memory, what's like the first thing that comes to your mind?
Childhood memory. Well, does graduating high school count?
Yeah, of course.
I'm 18, so that's right at the cusp of not being a child anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get another answer.
No, that's okay. Tell me about it. What made it, very memorable like that?
So high school itself was a very big turning point in my life. That's when I first started to believe in Jesus.
Oh, okay.
That's when I made some of the closest friends I have in life. And that was shortly after moving from one part of Ellicott City to another. And so I had to start from zero, socially speaking, at the age of like 14, 15, which is pretty difficult for a teenager to do. Had to make friends all over again. And the 4 years that represented, my time in high school was me picking up new hobbies, me making some of the closest friends in my life, friends whose weddings I would attend, who I would be around when they had their children. And that entire period of life ending for me and going into the 4 years of college and, the many, many years after college represented a major turning point in my life.
Right.
In many ways, like the end of what you would be able to call my childhood.
Yeah. Hey, I want to kind of go back to, when you became a believer in Jesus Christ. Like, did you grow up in church, or was that something, very new for you?
So I could say in one way that I grew up in church. My parents attended church at the time I was born, and I followed them to church maybe until I was in kindergarten or first grade, somewhere around that time. It's a Korean language church, and I'm a little kid. I don't understand any of what's being said from the pulpit. So some early memories from childhood are me, squirming around in the pew, trying not to be too bored.
Right.
And then just kind of looking around the sanctuary. Again, trying not to bother my parents too much. And eventually we all stopped going to church. And so by the time I actually grew up into, to an age where I could really grasp the gospel, By that time, I was not going to church. So no. Yes and no, I guess, will be the answer to that question.
Yeah. It's like a mixture. Oh, so like there wasn't like a particular children's ministry or like opportunity for you to kind of like hear the gospel when you were at a younger age, right?
Nothing from an institutional standpoint.
Right.
So the main Christian influences in my life were the other family members who still attended church at the time.
Yeah. Oh, who were they?
Yeah, so my family background, my dad's side of the family, they were the more Christian side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather on that side became a Christian, and he was, very deep in his devotion, and that was the devotion and the faith that he raised his own children with. And on my mother's side of the family, they come from a more Buddhist background. And so we do what in Korean is called 제사 and other very different cultural practices, yet still Korean, from, the kind of lifestyle that was present in my father's side.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So 제사 is when like there is a particular time, like you celebrate the anniversary of like your ancestor's death. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's a bit of a memorial service, I guess is what we would call it. The interesting thing about my family is my father's side of the family also had their own particular form of 제사. So they took many of the objectionable elements of the practice from Korean culture. They kind of purged all that out and retained the memorial aspect of it.
I see.
So it would be an occasion for us all to get together, remember our loved ones who are gone, and then enjoy a meal together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So did you feel any like tension, or I don't know if tension's the right word, but any kind of difference between like mom's side, dad's side, or just within mom and dad while growing up, like having different religious backgrounds and things like that?
Right. So there was tension in the family. And that was basically the reason why we stopped attending church. So there was, long story short, a bit of a disconnect in terms of worldview. And there was a lot of pressure from my mom to continue serving more and more in church, especially from her in-laws. Eventually reached the boiling point. She stopped attending. And then me and my older brother, we were, dragged to church with my dad as young children. We probably complained and whined about it a lot. Eventually my mom at some point must have gotten my dad to stop taking me and my brother. And so eventually my dad was on his own at church. And people would innocently ask, hey, you're here on your own. How are your wife and kids? Where are they at? And my dad, this is all me speculating, my father must have grown tired of answering that all the time. And so eventually he stopped going.
So, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So it was kind of like a natural dwindling of that.
Yeah, so that was the tension that sort of brought me out of the church environment as a young kid.
If you don't mind me asking, like, are they believers right, like today in the present day?
Short answer is no. I think my father would say he's a believer, but, attending church and spiritual matters are very much not a priority for him.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, despite all that, though, I feel very, I don't know, like grateful that you're such an involved member at our church. I don't know if some listeners may know, but like Ryan and I were in the same CG this past year, so I got to know him like a little bit better. And he like served us brothers and sisters really well and during CG. And so, yeah. How could I ask then, like how, despite all that tension and maybe that like kind of dwindling away from church, like as a family, how did you become a Christian? Like how did you get back into it?
Okay. So all along in the background, I did have Christian family members who would mention church, maybe even get as intentional as like trying to teach me a little bit here and there about what the Bible teaches and things like that. So that's in the background. And then in sophomore year of high school, I pick up a new hobby, breakdancing, where people spin on their heads and,
snap.
dance, like there's hip hop music playing and people are having fun and things like that, right? I started attending a breakdance club in my high school because, it was high school. I had almost no friends. I was in search of friends. I wanted to make some friends. In ninth grade, I made like a couple friends and I followed those two guys to the breakdance club.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was 10th grade, having worked as hard as I could to make about 2 or 3 friends. And here we all are, all being absolutely terrible at dancing together. But, we're all together. And eventually, these friends, some of them from the breakdance club, they go to Friday night youth group services at the church I went to back when I lived in Maryland. And I grew up a well-behaved kid. If an adult was talking in the front of the room, I would shut my mouth and, pay attention to what they were saying. And so this was true for the Friday night youth group services where the pastor would, preach from the word. And, I went one time, I sat down and learned, and we hung out. The youth group did, just kind of after service, killing time until all the students' parents will come and pick them up. And, Friday night, my first Friday night at that church was, it was all in all a good time. And I wanted to keep on going out because it was better than just being bored at home on Friday night. And also, there was a girl there that I liked. So, if I could just be honest about how 15-year-old Ryan, perceived and thought about life. There was a girl there that I liked, and I kept on going out there. Just, oh, is she gonna be there tonight? Oh, maybe she will be there.
Yeah.
But these were, simultaneous priorities of mine. I wanted to understand what it is that these Christians believed. I was genuinely curious, and also there's that cute girl. So, and my friends, and of course, there's my friends. I can't forget about them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, what would you say would be the turning point then? Like you're going because the friends introduced you, you're interested, there's also this girl, but then what's that moment where you're like, oh snap, like I believe this, this is for me. Like when was that?
So if I would describe my own journey into belief from out of unbelief, it would be more like watching the sun rise. For some other believers, it might be a flash of lightning, but for me, it was a slow journey into simply understanding the content of the Bible. Continuously asking the question to myself, what is it that this book says, or what do the Christians believe on this topic, right? And then there was a transition that took place over a number of months. From when I first started attending Sunday services as a junior in high school. And month after month of continual attendance, my question went from what do the Christians believe, what do they believe, to what do we believe, what do I believe, right?
Yeah.
And so I felt my heart slowly being turned over from unbelief to belief, as there was a cohesive message being taught to me just from faithful attendance, right? Just from being there, just from absorbing what it is, just from having the gospel presented to me as if I were smart enough to receive it. So eventually, the gospel does sink in if God prepares the soil, even through the thick skulls of teenage boys. So, and the turning point, if I could narrow it down to one single turning point, it would be my very first church retreat. There's a youth retreat.
Oh, yes.
And people turn into very different versions of themselves. Suddenly, they're very spiritual, very concerned about their spiritual lives. And I found that encouraging because, my goofy peers suddenly were very concerned about, oh, am I saved? Are my parents saved?
Right.
And they had a very profound side to them.
Yeah.
If you could actually peel away all those other defensive layers of them, right? They don't want to be so vulnerable all the time. But finally, you massaged their hearts into saying, okay, these are the things that really do matter to me, right? And we're all worshiping, we're all singing very long, for an hour, 45 minutes, for a very long time. And I think at some point there was a moment where I determined for myself, like, yeah, I believe, like I'm going to fully commit myself to belief and, reaching out and believing in Jesus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was a turning point. And then I think from then on, I really did take it upon myself to, do my best to read the Bible for myself and to learn and take a more active role into, forming my beliefs. Before it was all spoon fed to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think by the grace of God, he lit the fire in my heart. And I began to really delight in reading the Bible and learning.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like you were able to take that initiative yourself.
Yeah, I think certainly by the grace of God. That's for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Man, I love that. I love how, like, your analogy of watching the sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
I love that analogy. And I also love how it became a them thing to us and we, and like, it became something personal rather than something you were looking at from the outside.
Right.
And so talking about like active roles, you are currently a deacon at our church, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. When was that? When did that happen?
Okay, so I became a deacon in 2017. I remember very well because I was, ordained and installed as a deacon on Father's Day.
Oh.
Yeah, and to my delight, my parents and my brother, they all came down from Maryland to my ordination service.
Yeah.
And it was to venture off to the side a little bit, it was very touching to see them all, participating in the worship service.
Yeah.
It was very it hit me deep to the core. But getting back to the question, I started in 2017 after a 9-month training process and an interview with the session.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you don't mind me asking, listeners, you guys can do the math on your own. How old were you when you got ordained?
Yes. I was ordained at the age of 25. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was 25.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There's much to say about that. I was 25 years old.
True. That's kind of, because for me, my stereotypical view of deacon ordination, that's kind of a young age. How did you feel about that? Did you feel any particular way about it? Or were you I guess that's my question.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I felt the same way.
Okay.
25 is pretty young in the grand scheme of how many deacons I know and what age those people are.
Mm-hmm.
I was very humbled to be considered for the role. And maybe there was a grain of uncertainty inside my own heart as to how, my service in this role would go. But I think I determined not to dwell too hard on that and to proceed in faith, because I'm not working and serving as a deacon on my own. I have other deacons and deaconesses who went through the training with me, who I got to know quite well. And if there's any help that I need, I know so many people are within arm's reach. They're accessible with the touch of a button. I can call them, or I can just speak with them on Sunday, or I can even bring up any concern of mine that I have at one of our regular meetings with the deacon board. So maybe a little bit unsure, but not altogether afraid or anything like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are there such things as sabbaticals and whatnot in the deacon position? Yeah.
So the sabbatical policy that our church has for their deacons is after 2 years of service, every deacon or deaconess qualifies to enter a sabbatical for 1 ministry year.
Oh, okay.
Without being forced into a sabbatical. Mm-hmm. So after 2 years of serving, a deacon or deaconess can opt to continue to serve for a 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year. And if I'm not mistaken, at any time they can say, oh, I would like to enter my sabbatical.
Right.
Yeah. So I am currently on the tail end of my own sabbatical.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I was able to, attend CG with you was I was no longer, for the sabbatical year, I was no longer obliged to lead a CG or assist in leading a CG in some way. I could actually be a normal attendee of a community group.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
And so having been on your sabbatical this year from serving, what were some areas you were able to grow in during that time off?
So I definitely got the rest and refreshment of being freed from a lot of obligations that the deacons have in serving. I'm definitely ready to get back into things.
Yeah.
And to get back into leading CG, get back into all the various roles in church that I took a 1 year break from. And I also got to see how other CGs operate. I attended Eric's CG for the past ministry year.
Woo.
And there he is. Yep. And in choosing Eric's CG, my goal was to observe how other leaders would do things. And with this particular window of opportunity, I wanted to go see how Eric does things. People seem to really like Eric's CG, and I wanted to get a fuller grasp on what made it so, what's the word for it? Successful, maybe perhaps. Why it was so cherished,
Yeah. So how did he do? No, I'm just kidding. You guys can talk about that on a later time if you want, but
maybe off the record.
Yeah. So, what are you most excited about getting back into?
I'm actually excited to get back into leading my own CG.
Hey.
Yeah. With my own particular personality and, my own strengths, I think leading a discussion and, kind of being there as someone to rely on as a leader is a really good way for me to contribute and edify, our brethren in the church and perhaps any unbeliever that might come along. I personally came from unbelief. And so for anybody who doesn't believe in Jesus Christ right now, to maybe a certain extent, I can sympathize with them.
Yeah, yeah. So regarding I guess this is more of a logistically related question, but becoming a deacon, does someone approach you or do you show interest when they announce there's trainings or what kind of goes into all that?
Okay, so here's how it happens.
Tell us the what is that called? Behind the scenes?
Yeah, how the sausage is made? Yeah. Okay. So during a congregational meeting that the church has, they form a nomination committee. And the nomination committee will meet and they'll, put together a list of names of potential deacon or deaconess candidates that they would like to approach. Later on, those candidates are asked if they would like to start the training, if they would like to participate in the training to one day become a deacon or deaconess. And then that training begins at the beginning of a ministry year, goes through the fall, through the winter, through the spring, and culminates with an interview with the session, or 2 members from the session at least. That's when they do a final check on you, making sure everything's all right with you, making sure if you have any exception to the doctrinal standards of the denomination that they are aware of it. Mm-hmm. And eventually the session will convene and they will, approve candidates for entry into the deacon board. And then the candidates will be presented at a congregational meeting for a vote. They'll be voted in, and it's not a political election in any kind of way. It's just we approve this guy, we approve that. There's no one running against the other person there. Mm-hmm. So we definitely want more deacons and deaconesses, not, any less than the number of candidates that were in a given batch. And so candidates are voted in, and then another service is set later for their ordination and installation.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, it's it kind of sounds like a very in-depth kind of very serious, you have to think about a lot of things and reflect, and it's not just hey, you want to do it? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, as you might be able to see that it's a very intentional process,
Yeah.
very much designed against impulse, whims, things of that nature.
Yeah. Which, it's very good. It's very needed, you know. So I'm going to actually go way back into our conversation because this kind of stuck with me as a fellow, I don't know if I consider myself like a dancer anymore, but fellow person who likes to dance. You were talking about b-boying and stuff like that in high school. Are you still doing that nowadays?
I do. Much to the disappointment to my parents who would like me to stop, But yeah, it's something I do take a delight in. It's something that I think is fun.
Yeah,
right? It's a good way to stay active.
Why do your parents kind of have a disapproving kind of stance to it?
Okay, maybe it was a little bit overstated, but definitely while I was still a student, in the preparation and build up for college admission, they're like, "Wow, hey Ryan, you should kind of like focus more on your studies, right?" Even when my grades weren't really suffering all that bad.
I see.
And then I make it into college. I'm in a pretty difficult major, aerospace engine. I'm an aerospace engineering major, and they're like, "Hey, Ryan, like, you should focus on your studies. You want to tone down the dancing a little bit, like, focus on your studies a little bit." I'm like, "Okay, no, I'll show you that I can get some, good grades while not quitting that, while not quitting one of the few things that makes life fun."
Yeah.
So I show them, get my job, and for a while, they don't have really much to say anymore. And now that I've gotten a little bit old, now that some time has elapsed, they're saying, "Hey, Ryan, aren't you getting a little too old for this?" So
do you think you are though? Are you getting too old for this?
No, I don't think I'm getting too old for this.
Yeah.
I think, being in that world, you see a lot of people who are older than you who are still going at it, and I think there are better solutions to the effects of old age other than just quitting. You can make a few changes here and there. You can actually apply a little bit of your brain and still have some fun without completely obliterating your joints.
Yeah. So what in your eyes makes someone what differentiates like a good breakdancer versus like maybe average or not so good?
So one of the most important rules for this kind of dancing is you're having fun. You're original, right? That's in that culture, we really value those things. And obviously just being good at it, right? Being athletic enough to move and being flexible enough to hit moves and being able to learn a lot of different kinds of movements that are in that dance, right? But all in all, the whole package is you're having fun, you're original, and then we, the people who are looking at you, are also having fun and connecting with you on sort of a very emotional, mental, spiritual level, Yeah. We're really feeling you,
Yep. Okay. So it's kind of like no matter how technically skilled you may be, if it doesn't seem like, you're having fun and you're in that moment, you might get viewers might kind of get bored or might be like, "Oh, they're okay," or like they're whatever.
I think first impressions are like, "Whoa, that's amazing. Whoa." Yeah. Right. And then after, seeing that particular dancer go out, maybe, the third time, fourth time, fifth time, it gets kind of boring. If they're not, evidently having fun. You can be the most athletic and flexible and all this and that. But if you're not dancing in a way that strikes the heart, then, I'm falling asleep. Everyone's falling asleep.
Yeah.
Even if you're really, good otherwise. Yeah.
All right. So I don't know if you guys, the listeners, you guys remember, but Chuno in our first episode of this season was very freaked out by Eric's research, in-depth researching skills. But, Ryan, we have a clip from 2010.
2010. Okay.
Yeah. Of you as a dancer.
That's a long time ago. Okay.
It is a long time ago, but compared to then and now, do you think you've improved since then?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Where do you think you have improved and that you could for sure say there's a noticeable difference?
So I got stronger. I learned more moves. I got more comfortable with dancing and being in uncomfortable situations. I think it's very performative, right? We like to pretend that, well, we like to treasure the individuality of it, that we're really dancing more for ourselves. But when we're at an event where we're having fun with other people, we are putting on performance for everybody involved.
Yeah.
For ourselves and also for everyone else who wants to have fun with us, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So that sort of performative aspect is, to anybody who's not familiar with it, very anxiety inducing. You could be very nervous. You could seize up. You could feel your muscles getting tense and like sweat coming out of your palms.
Yeah.
So, as I've, become more an experienced dancer, as 13 years have gone by between now and then.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I have gotten better. I really hope I have. So just mentally, athletically, and even more with the relationship between music and my own body.
Yeah.
I've become better. I think that relationship has strengthened.
Yeah. And like your showmanship and stuff, like through experience, those things kind of become easier and you become more comfortable coming out of your shell in that performative aspect. When you danced in college or in high school and college with that group, were they more like American geared or Asian American geared, or was it just a good mix of diversity, or like how was that?
So in high school, most of us were Korean or Chinese. There were 2 or 3 African Americans, 1 Indian American. And so that was the kind of demographic makeup. In college, I got to see some more white Americans there.
Yeah.
And then more Indian Americans, different kinds of what we would call Asian American, as in Chinese, Japanese, Taiwanese, and such.
Yeah. I asked that because I wanted to ask if there's any like noticeable difference to you or, just like stylistic things that are different from American versus Korean, or even like Asian American versus white American versus someone. Yeah. Like I want to know if there's differences that you see.
To put it concisely, Asian American dancers, people who are born in Asia, and that's what I mean by that. They tend to be more focused on a lot of the athletic moves.
Right.
The listeners, you can look this up. Go on YouTube and type in flares or windmills, air flares. They'll be really good at learning these, gymnastics-esque moves.
Okay.
They'll be very focused at practice, and they'll just drill it over and over and over again. American dancers or dancers who grew up in America, they'll tend to prioritize having fun with the music more.
I see.
A lot of songs are in the English language, right? And so people who grew up in America, they understand the English. They can play around with the music just a little bit more. They can really appreciate that aspect more. And so an effect of that is they're just more expressive.
I see. I see.
They have a little bit more fun. And so within the b-boy world, I think an ongoing observation is all these other dancers from all around the world, they're very competent, they're very athletic, they learn all these moves. And Americans, if at all, they fall behind in those aspects. But one thing we'll always have over them is we like the music more.
I see. True. You know how you're like, compared to 2010, I'm definitely / hopefully better now, but is age starting to catch up at all?
It's less the age and more me gaining weight. So, I cook for a lot for myself at home since I work from home. And so I might be eating a little bit too well for myself. So I won't blame age just yet. I think it's more of a general physical fitness thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's best for me to lose a little bit of weight for the sake of my joints. And from an age perspective, it doesn't get any easier as time goes on. So the weight I'm at right now is not the weight I should be at. If I want to continue to enjoy dancing for a long time, I need to take good care of myself.
Okay. True. Ryan, I didn't know you were an aerospace engineer.
Yeah, I guess it's not quite the conversation starter. Hey, did you know I'm an aerospace engineer? I won't take the initiative introducing myself in that way. Mostly when people go around, inevitably the conversation topic will shift to, hey, so what do you do for work, right? Doesn't happen all the time. And I'm, perfectly happy talking about virtually anything else. Not that I hate my job, but
yeah. I mean, it's just because like I've known you here and there, like slightly before CG, and then during our time at CG, it's like I feel like it should have come up in some conversation, but it hasn't at all. So I'm sitting here like, dude, you were an aerospace engineer? Like what? Like aerospace engineer B-boy? Like I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Do you like it? How do you like it?
I think it's cool. Airplanes, spacecraft, rockets speak to a very common aspect of a lot of, young men's hearts, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that stuff's cool. Big old metal thing moving through the sky, right?
Yeah.
So all in all, my job's cool. And as with, people in any kind of profession, if you're in it long enough, you can find something to complain about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with me and my job, I can always take a step back and really appreciate, some of the cool stuff that I'm doing. And that helps me kind of get back into the weeds and deal with, the problem that I've been banging my head against for the last 15 minutes or so.
Yeah. What's like, so like, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about aerospace engineering. What is like the most, I don't know if fun is the right word, or maybe like most like fulfilling or kind of project that you had?
Let's see. So if you're asking about a fulfilling aspect of the job, it's all in all the victory against the force of gravity.
Oh.
Right? You got this big, hunk of metal weighing thousands of pounds off the ground by either pushing air over a wing or with rockets or of some sort. And that's very fulfilling. To get a little bit broader than that, it's the idea of taking something from a screen, a piece of paper, from a very abstract medium even, and watching it take form in front of you, or at least watching the pictures of it happening, right?
Yeah.
You designed that part. Some other people get paid to make it, and other people get paid to, assemble it all together. They get paid to turn the screws and weld and things of that nature. You get to see something that exists in real life and does things for actual customers, right? And if I were to choose a specific project that I found particularly fulfilling, it would be this one research project for NASA. So NASA had this hyper optimized design for an airplane wing using very revolutionary techniques where they take carbon fiber and they direct the fibers with something that's not too dissimilar from those whiteout applicators.
Yeah.
The roller types.
Yeah.
So the technology exists where we can lay down carbon fiber and apply it just like whiteout.
Whoa.
And, some other grad students at a college far away, they design this, with their computers, they design the best possible wing, and they want to design it to hit certain kinds of milestones and benchmarks and things of that nature. And my company was approached to actually manufacture the wing.
Oh,
because we had the equipment to make it.
Yeah.
And I was, one of the handful of designers brought onto the team to actually make sure we can make those skins and we can make all the underlying structure for them. So there you have it.
Yeah, you guys can't see my face right now, but I'm like mouth open, like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah,
that's really cool. So Eric gave me permission to steal his thunder, but I'm really not going to. He's over here on the side saying like, hey, Ryan, funny that in both your job and your hobbies, you're defying gravity. I thought that was really fun comment, so I have to say that.
Yeah, that is pretty fun. I can confirm, and it's quite fun. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that, but okay. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Hey, it's Eric's comment, not mine. So throwing it all back to Eric. Okay. Is it long hours, or is it just a regular kind of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of thing, or?
So long as everything's working normally, we have normal working hours, and that's, I could say, upwards of 90% of the time. There might be certain urgent scenarios in which we have to put in some overtime work.
Yeah.
But I'm very thankful that I can have very sensible hours, that I can have time in the day for anything else I want to achieve other than, being at my job. Mm-hmm. And that empowers me to have enough morale to face the next day of work.
Yeah.
Right? The next week of work, the next year of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you start right after undergrad? Like, did you just go straight into the work field?
Yeah. Graduated in May of 2014. Started this job in July of 2014.
Oh, snap. Yeah.
And at that time, the job market wasn't very great for aerospace grads, as far as I could tell. Mm-hmm. I had the choice between accepting a co-op in Aberdeen, Maryland, or choosing the job I have now in Manassas, Virginia.
Oh, okay. So you've been there since then? Like, yep. The same company?
Same company. Yep. 9 years.
Oh, wow. Yep. Wow.
In fact, my first day of work was July 14th, 2014.
Oh, so like that 9-year mark just passed.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you plan on staying, or I don't know. Is that something that you can plan, I guess? I don't know how. Yeah, I plan on staying unless there's some other situation or, something else that would oblige me to move. I like the job that I have now. I like the company that I'm at right now. I'm perfectly content continuing to work where I'm at. Yeah. Do you get like a gift or something for year 10? Oh,
so our company has certain perks. If you hit the 5-year mark, you get a little pin that you can put on your lanyard. At the 10-year mark, I think it's a more beautiful pin. Obviously, like what they give you. Okay, so for the first completed year of work, it's a jacket. You get a company jacket. It's quite weatherproof. It's very good, actually.
Yeah, good quality.
Yeah. Before it used to be like a bomber jacket, but that kind of out of style. So they switched to a little bit more of a modern design. I think at the 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, 30-year, those milestones, you get progressively better looking pins, if I'm not mistaken.
So do you collect those, or do you have to return your pin for the better one?
Oh no, you can keep the previous pin. Yeah.
Do people wear them at work? Like, and you see them and like, oh, that dude's been here for like 15 years.
Well, typically when someone's been around for that long, you already know their face, so you're not looking at the pin. I do wear my pin that I got 4 years ago at the 5-year mark. Yeah. So, but I work from home. Who's gonna see it other than myself?
Oh, right? That's true. That's true. I forgot about that.
So the one day I'll frolic into the office. I'll show my pin off to everybody, who will proceed not to notice it. So. Yeah.
Do you wish there was something better for the 5, 10, 15-year marks than a pin and a more beautiful pin?
That was not at the top of my list of priorities. The job is cool. The compensation for it is cool. At the 10 and 15-year marks, you get changes in benefits. I think on a practical level, that's what I'm more excited about.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. You mentioned you have an older brother, right?
Yes.
Is it just the two of you?
Yes. He's 4 years older than me.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Does he also do stuff like this? Like engineering?
No. He doesn't have an aerospace engineering job. He's had different lines of work. He was a second in charge for a golf course, a really good one, for a long time, before making a career switch into a software engineering job.
Oh, okay.
So he works in cybersecurity.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. You golf, right?
Yeah. I've been hitting golf balls since I was like 4 years old.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it was a great way for me to bond with a lot of the men in my family who are also into golf. So I grew up playing golf.
Wow.
Mhm.
What is like your, I don't know much about golf either. I'm
Uh-huh.
sorry, but like what is your like score? Like, you know,
Like the typical score I would get on a round of 18 holes.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I would say in the mid 80s. On a good day, I'll be in the low 80s.
Oh.
On a bad day, I'll be in the high 80s or maybe 90 or the low 90s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But isn't like under 100 pretty good?
Yeah.
In the golf? Yeah.
You're a decent golfer if you're hitting in the 90s.
Yeah. Dang. And you're in the mid 80s?
Yeah.
Or low 80s on a good day too? Like, man. Were you did I hear you were in a driving competition recently? For like golf? For golf, guys.
I mean, it was a golf outing that I was in maybe 2 weekends ago.
Yeah.
I was brought into a group of friends who went on this trip. So out of this group of friends, I'd only known maybe 3 or 4 of them prior. And so they put together a bunch of money. They booked lodging and 4 rounds of golf over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
And we made a tournament out of it. We all just got to have fun. And part of the tournament was a long drive competition.
Oh.
And I was lucky enough to win it.
Really?
Yeah. So there was a prize for that. And
was it a pin?
It was not a pin. It was actually a little bit better than a pin. It was a bottle of whiskey, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not a whiskey drinker, but what kind of whiskey was it? Or what was the name of it? I don't know.
The name of it was Umiki. And it's a Japanese whiskey. And from what I can remember of reading the label, it's not. It's I didn't finish the bottle yet. What I can remember, it is made in casks from desalinated seawater and aged by the ocean side somewhere.
Oh,
so yeah, I was very happy to win that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the prize actually.
Oh,
so
did you know there was a prize?
I didn't know there was a prize. I thought winning was the prize, right? And so as we're all leaving to go home, one of the guys from the group comes over to my car, taps the window, he's like, "Here's your prize," and he hands me the bottle.
Oh, nice. How many yards did you hit it?
That day I drove the ball 290 yards.
Dang. Do you know what the second place person hit? Do you know what they hit?
Probably around 260 yards.
Okay.
270 yards or so. Like the way we measured it is not very sophisticated. The longest drive up to that point would take this, yellow marker stick and just stick it into the ground. If you drove it past that stick, you get to move the stick to your ball.
Oh, okay.
And take a picture with the stick and proclaim yourself the current leader.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many people competed? Do you know?
So the group was 20 people. Yeah. And if you hit a long ball, but if it's not in the fairway, it doesn't count. So you have to drive it very far. And there is a little bit of an accuracy requirement as well. That's a typical long drive contest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was that? Like, this was in topic of conversation recently of like the person who drives the longest in the world. Like, what was their record? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it might be closer to 400 yards.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you just hit 290.
Mm-hmm. And the typical pro golfer will hit about a little over 300 yards.
Okay.
310, maybe 315 or so.
So you're up there if they're just over 300. I mean, I guess, I don't know. How hard is it to go up those like 10, 20, 30 more yards?
If you were it's very easy to go from driving the ball 220 yards to driving it 260. And then I would say getting it consistently 10 yards further gets that much more harder.
Yeah.
Right?
Like after 260? Okay.
So you have to make some changes to your equipment, or you actually just have to get stronger with conditioning. A lot of these pro golfers, they train very hard. They lift weights, medicine ball. They have swing coaches to really optimize your swing and, generate the most club head speed. so that the ball goes a little bit further, right? And also on target.
Mm-hmm. Dang. And you've been hitting since you were 4.
Mm-hmm.
Did you play in high school and college?
So
on the team?
Yeah, I was on my high school's golf team, and in senior year, I was captain.
Okay.
I did not play in college. I didn't want to play in college. I think at that time, I would rather just be focusing on studies.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was able to get into a college, it would be, a small school somewhere very far from home without an aerospace program. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll be forced into making a choice between playing golf and studying what I wanted to study.
Yeah, yeah. Gotcha. Oh my gosh. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely learned a lot more about Ryan today, which is it's surprising because, I thought I knew at least some of his background and upbringing and all that, being in the same CG as him, but it was for sure not. I was surprised by all these things that he was so involved in and his faith journey and all that. And so kind of bringing it back around to your faith journey, who would you consider someone at CCPC that helped you and influenced you in your spiritual walk?
It would be the men from men's ministry. So, and also maybe a CG leader. The leader of the very first CG I attended at Christ Central was Edwin Yoon.
Oh yeah.
And it was just through his continual presence, just continued faithful service, that I could, continue to attend church.
Yeah.
Happily.
Yeah.
Have a little bit more faith and trust in the way that God cares for his church.
Mm-hmm.
And in the men's ministry, it would be Key.
Mm-hmm.
Elder Key.
Yeah.
And he also was an example of continued faithful service, oftentimes with a smile.
Yeah.
And he was a very encouraging older man in my life.
Mm-hmm.
To always be around there, ask how I'm doing. He's always happy to pray for me. And even as we would work together on things like Holiday Basket, he would always be there as someone to reassure me, as someone to encourage me to serve.
Yeah. That's awesome. We're coming up to the end of our session here. I'm very excited for you. I'm glad you got your, well-needed rest from your serving as a deacon. I'm super excited to see you coming back serving strong in this upcoming ministry year. And that's a wrap. Thank you, listeners of B-Sides. We'll see you next week.